Warning from the Bacta tank contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue.
We would be honored if you would join us.
How are you feeling? Our latest workups on your condition indicate that all damage has been reversed. Recovery is total. I believe you have been quite fortunate. No further thanks are necessary, Commander, but you are most welcome. It is my function and pleasure as a medical droid to help and heal human beings.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
All right, we're back for another edition of Star Wars from the Bacta Tank, the Star Wars Rebels edition. If you ever miss any part of our show, past or present, you can always get them on iTunes as well as Stitcher. Just search From the Bacta Tank. Also, available on the new Rain Man Digital app. Just go to Google Play Store and search Rain Man Digital.
Always growing.
Yeah. All right, so today we will be discussing the highly anticipated episode of the season, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I would say
this was a game changer.
Yeah. Episode 11, Call to Action. But first, we have some groundbreaking, earth-shattering Star Wars Rebels news. To me, as a Star Wars fan, I immediately get giddy when I read this news. Okay, and who knows? It could just be gossip and rumors, like much of what we find happening
on the internet.
Yeah. So it was recently rumored that Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, and Ahsoka would appear in the season 2 premiere of Star Wars Rebels. But now it seems that another original character that will be at least making a cameo appearance in the series is going to be Han Solo.
Now, the question becomes, is this going to be a really young Han Solo?
Well, 5 years. Has to be 5 years difference, right? So that's Rebels takes place 5 years before New Hope. How old is Han Solo? Maybe 29, 30 in A New Hope?
Probably. I mean, now that I think about it, we had that Lando episode.
Right.
So, and Lando and Han apparently were almost the same age.
Yeah. And I'm assuming they knew each other at this point.
That's going to be the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Are we going to see the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, they're going to shed some light on this stuff. So, okay, as a Star Wars fan, I immediately get happy. Okay, but you know what? Let's put a pin in that. Let me finish reading this article, and then we're going to kind of discuss our thoughts on it, all right? Our source has told us that a certain actor, this is according to the Bearded Trio, our source has told us that a certain actor, who we won't mention at this time, has been considered for a role in the second season of Star Wars Rebels, and that role is Han Solo. The actor has been associated with playing the character previously. We were told by a source it's not concrete yet, but he is in talks to do the cameo of Han Solo in season 2. Okay, well, if we're gonna put all our chips on the table here and cast Han Solo, why don't we not just cast Harrison Ford?
That's what I was about to say. I mean,
why not?
Shy about it.
I mean, let's say you can't commit. Let's say down the road you want to put him in more, and Harrison Ford can't commit, and the budget doesn't allow it. Okay, fine. First off, let's not pretend the budget doesn't allow Harrison Ford. Let's not pretend, Disney. Okay, let's not pretend you're not raking it in right now.
Exactly.
But let's say budget is an issue. Fine. Let's do a Mace Windu maneuver. Have Samuel Jackson, like he did. He did a couple voice scenes in Clone Wars.
Yes.
It was Samuel Jackson for the movie, I believe, of Clone Wars. And then after that, they got another actor to do it. And that was fun. That worked, And I think that would be awesome as well. I think that would be a good move as well, is cast Harrison Ford, just in the cameo, pay him, $15,000 to say, hey, I'm a scoundrel, whatever you want to have him say.
Exactly.
And then, call it a day. And then if you want to bring him back more, either find money for it or cast a new actor at that point. But I think if you're going to play around with Han Solo, let's just don't just tease us. Just give us Harrison Ford as well.
Don't ball tickle us.
Right.
Don't ball tickle us, because you know what? They did it with Billy D. Williams.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? Billy D. Williams was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
He voice acted brilliantly in that episode.
And to back you up on that, not that another actor can't be as brilliant, but let's be honest. This is Billy D. Williams and Harrison Ford. These guys are great talents, and it's them. They are those characters.
You know, it's odd that they're trying to be coy about it. They are definitely ball tickling us because they're not coming out and saying who the actor is when they simply could.
Yeah,
they honestly could, because just like what you said, a lot of actors have done it before. I mean, like, in the article that you posted up, they actually did mention that a really famous voice actor, David Collins, is recently actually doing Han Solo. So why not get him?
Right.
But why would you play around and kind of be quiet about, David Collins?
Yeah, let's not play games.
Yeah, don't play games.
At this point, let's not play games. Now let's talk about our thoughts on this. Now, initially, as a Star Wars fan, I'm uber excited. Okay? I'm like, yes, we got Darth Vader, we got Han Solo, we got Emperor Palpatine, and we got, for the new generation, we got Ahsoka, who people love, and I liked her as well.
Yeah.
The only problem I foresee with this is, are we blowing our load too fast, and is it going to take away from the Rebels cast themselves? So far, they've done a really good job staying true to these characters. Is there a need? My question is, yes, we want it, but is there a need for it? Do we need these cameos? I think Star Wars Rebels is doing, my personal thought is, Star Wars Rebels is doing a great job standing on its own 2 feet.
Yes.
Do we need to do gimmick and stunt casting at this point in the game by putting Han Solo? Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ahsoka, I guess it kind of makes sense. Emperor, but relating to the Star Wars Rebellion, Palpatine and Vader makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ahsoka, Han Solo, Lando, even though I love it, it doesn't, I think it feels more of a gimmick casting than something that actually is needed to propel the story. What are your thoughts?
Well, remember, I mean, we thought about this when they did the cameos this past season with C-3PO, R2. They did it with Senator Amidala. They did it with Senator Organa.
Right.
And then they did it with Lando.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only difference, though, with Organa is again, if we go by old canon, I mean, obviously he had a part in the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Even maybe R2. Lando doesn't necessarily make sense. More of a gimmick, and I think Han Solo and Ahsoka fall into that category as well.
Well, that Lando episode,
even though I did like it.
I did like the Lando episode, and I was like you. I was like, there's going to be a gimmicky episode. But in actuality, the episode kind of helped the characters of the Rebels. It showed them as a team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when...
But did Lando help propel the story?
I do think so.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, the stunts that he pulled is what helped the team kind of come together.
Okay.
Especially when, he sells off... First he wins Chopper, and then he tries to sell off Hera.
Right.
And all that stuff, because that's Lando's character, brings that team closer together.
Yeah.
So doing something like that really makes sense. And also, you got to remember, Darth Vader did make an appearance this past season. It was as a hologram.
Yeah.
Just to tell the Inquisitor like that. So we might, with Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, we might get something like that again.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I think the writers have been doing a really great job playing with these cameos.
Right.
I agree. The one that I am psyched about, I was really giddy about like the Han Solo announcement, but I'm more excited about the Ahsoka one because, especially when you put it into context with what we found out in this past episode.
Right.
What happened to Ahsoka?
Yeah.
She disappeared.
She did leave the Jedi Order, right?
She left the Jedi Order. She quit because the Jedi Order banished her.
Okay.
And and when they basically apologized and asked her to come back, she refused.
Right.
And then the last thing you see is her walk off.
Mm-hmm.
And then all fans everywhere were like going, well, what happened to her when Order 66 happened? Now we're going to find out. And especially when you put into context of like what happened, what happened in this episode, which I think, I'm going to say this right now, this past episode was probably the best out of all the episodes.
Don't jump ahead, but yeah, don't jump ahead.
But because of what was discussed,
best episode ever.
but because of like what was discussed in this past episode, the announcement of Ahsoka actually being there in season 2 really actually gets me really excited because I want to see, okay, what did Ahsoka do?
Yeah,
is she part of the could she be part of the Rebel Alliance? We don't know. We're going to find out in season 2.
And that's the kind of cool thing is my mind keeps drifting back to the old canon. I'm like, well, I don't know because that was never done. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I got to forget that. I got to forget and that's why some people said on, I think some Twitter said, dude, you keep at, you guys are doing a show about Star Wars and yet you guys keep questioning the canon. I'm like, there is no canon. That's why the canon is the new Clone Wars, the prequel series, Clone Wars, Rebels,
and the trilogy.
The original trilogy. That is canon. That is now what we have to base this on. So we have to speculate because we can go back and say, yeah, of course I know the story of what happened with the clone troopers and execute Order 66. I get it. I know. But those things were explained, a lot of it, in non-canon. We can't.
Legends.
So now we have to discuss this and speculate because we don't know if they're going to go back to that.
Exactly.
I think on that note, let's go. We're going to just jump in. No breaks today. Let's just jump right into the second segment, which will be episode 11, Call to Action. The episode was directed by Steward Lee. Steward Lee, sorry. Those words are ran together. Leand. Steward Lee and written by executive producers Greg Weisman and Simon Kinberg. The Ghost crew, having proved effective in their strikes against the Empire, win the attention of a powerful new enemy. This episode centers around the rebels attempting to hack an Imperial transmission tower in order to send an inspirational message of hope to the people of Lothal. In doing so, they must contend with the Imperial forces newly energized to destroy the rebels by the arrival of an important government figure, Grand Moff Tarkin, Governor of the Outer Rim territories. Well, when the Tarkin was announced they would be in this, I don't know why. I think I'm jaded a bit in the Star Wars universe, so I immediately start, I cringe. I get scared. But I have to say, we're going to break all this down here, so don't listen to this word and say, yeah, it's a great episode and tune out after I say this.
Exactly.
But this episode, I mean, it wasn't disappointing with Tarkin at all.
No, absolutely.
And I honestly, man, I mean, he's he's a mass murderer. Okay. He committed genocide. We haven't seen it yet.
But we know he
destroys millions. He kills millions of people in an instant. I mean, this guy has a reputation that precedes him, meaning we haven't even seen it yet, but we all know. We all know what he does.
Yeah.
We know a little bit. We, of course, with the novel that came out, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but according to a lot of people, it has a lot of good backstory on him.
Oh,
and of course, we know what he does in New Hope. And if you want to go back and look at the stuff that he's done in the old canon, I mean, we know what this guy is capable of. And I was nervous that his first introduction into the canon of this world, it was going to be basically just not, it wasn't going to deliver the goods. And I have to say that thankfully, I was wrong. I think they delivered the goods through and through.
Well, I mean, like, Tarkin himself is not your atypical. Let's face it. A lot of hesitation with this character always goes with the fact that it's not a Disney type of character. Tarkin is just like what you said. He's a mass murderer.
He's Hitler.
He's Hitler. Exactly. He pretty much is. And we've never seen a character like this being done animated.
Yeah. Will
they quote unquote in air quotes Disneyfy him? And I am so happy they didn't in this episode. They didn't pull any punches. You got to see Tarkin as he is, and the best part by far, because I actually recently just finished the book while I was on vacation.
Good.
And what you see in what you see in Rebels in that episode, you pretty much get in the novel, and the novel is dark.
Does the book take place? What's the time frame in the book?
The time frame of the book, I believe, is just right before New Hope. Oh, right before New Hope. As they're building the first Death Star, and it goes about more or less the mindset of Tarkin, what he is, and everything else. And
you thought this played true to it?
This played absolutely true to it, especially like some of the stuff that Tarkin talks about, and he emphasizes. You know, like now one of my favorite scenes right off the bat is the ending, where Tarkin looks best line in the whole episode. Looks at Kanan and basically says, "You don't know how to win a war.
Yeah,
I do."
Yeah, that was good.
And he does it so cold because he's basically telling them that he doesn't care who he kills.
Right.
It's like that in the book because Tarkin is by far a great strategist, and he doesn't mind making calls like that.
So going, kind of a little off topic here, but with the new canon, okay, and how everything is connected in a way that it's never been connected before. We have now seen Tarkin in three instances, correct? We've seen him in Star Wars Rebels.
Yes.
We've seen him in the book, and we've seen him in New Hope.
Oh, and we've seen him in Clone Wars.
Is he in Clone Wars too?
Yeah, he was in Clone Wars in one episode.
Okay, I don't remember that for some reason.
It was the introduction of Tarkin,
okay,
and how him and Anakin first meet.
Okay, so you put those together. Do you think Disney and Lucasfilm are doing the new Lucasfilm story group? Do you think they're meshing these stories pretty good together with that character? Is he pretty consistent?
Oh, absolutely. I think honestly, Tarkin's become my favorite villain.
Okay.
Everyone talks about the Inquisitor.
Inquisitor.
Or Callus. I think it's Agent Callus.
Agent Callus is a Ken doll with a beard.
But honestly, the person that I truly fear is Tarkin, which is hilarious because like Tarkin doesn't look very scary, but when you see him in action, you get to hear his voice, you get to see what he does and what he chooses to do. That's like Hannibal Lecter stuff. Because he doesn't mind killing people if it suits the goal in the end.
Yeah. Because
in his mind, he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah. All right. I agree. Okay. Well, let's start from the very beginning. The opening scene, I think, had to be epic, and it was the introduction to Tarkin in the Rebels universe, I guess we can call it. The writers, I think, did right by the fans. In mere seconds, they were able to show Tarkin in the authoritative and militant light that he belongs in. I mean, he's no dummy. He's skilled in combat. He's crafty. He's an Imperial officer through and through. And I think they showed that from the minute he stepped foot off the shuttle.
Yeah.
And put every single person in their place in 45 seconds.
Including
the Inquisitor.
And like the Inquisitor couldn't do anything.
It was so good. And I like it because, I mean, even with the Inquisitor, it was kind of like off. It was not off the cuff. What's the word?
It was like a bitch slap.
Yeah, it wasn't directed to him, but it was like, especially since there's someone here that's directly involved in discovering Jedi, or taking care of Jedi. I mean, I loved it. It was so good, the captured from the beginning, the opening scene with the shuttles and the TIE fighters flying towards, from the Star Destroyer, flying towards the planet. That was Star Wars.
Yes.
I mean, dude, I got chills. I'm gonna get a little nerdy here for a moment. I got nerd chills when the song started, and I'm like, oh, dude, this is so good.
Dude, what popped in my head was Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Remember when Vader shows up?
Oh yeah, and then the stormtroopers are all lined up.
Stormtroopers are all lined up, and then later on you see the Emperor show up. Same thing with Tarkin.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yes, they're paying homage to this character because they really do want to push the fact that he is a very dangerous individual. A lot of people, it's funny because when I watched the episode with a bunch of friends of mine when it debuted, we all discussed about it, and it dawned on all of us that I don't think not a lot of Star Wars fans realize Tarkin is actually Vader's boss.
Yeah.
He's he's higher ranking. Vader answers to him.
Yeah.
And
that's hard for a lot of people to swallow.
Exactly.
Like, a lot of it really is, because my son was watching this episode with me, and he didn't even understand. He's all, why is this old guy with no powers telling everyone what to do? And I was like, what do you mean he has no powers? He's awesome. And he's all like, well, the Inquisitor, why is he talking mean to the Inquisitor? Because he loves the Inquisitor. I'm like, he doesn't even have a lightsaber. And I'm like, that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
And it's funny because, like, when you're a kid, you think power is all about the weapons you wield.
Exactly.
And this guy is not that. His weapon is his wisdom and his, strategic genius. That's his weapon.
That's his weapon. And, like, it even scares people how brilliant he is.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my friends actually pointed out, if you think about it, going back to Clone Wars, when we first meet Tarkin, he's already a brilliant strategist. Anakin looked up to Tarkin because in the end of that episode, Anakin tells Obi-Wan that he tells Obi-Wan that basically that man's going to be like one of our greatest generals ever, and he wants to follow him. And just think about that. That's Darth Vader. Darth Vader literally saying that he's going to follow Tarkin.
And he does.
Yeah. And that's why I was like laughing, like what you said, when he just in like a couple minutes looks at one person, tells him he's an idiot. Looks at another person, tells him he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Looks at the one person that's a badass, that's been a badass throughout the entire season, and tells him he's an idiot.
Well,
and the Inquisitor just like looks down, and I'm like going, because the Inquisitor knows my master answers to him.
And I think we all forget that, you brought up a great point. We all forget that Tarkin and New Hope, I mean, he was Vader's boss.
Yeah.
Come on, Vader's using the dark side of the Force, murdering a guy, and he says that's enough, Lord Vader.
And then what does Vader do? He goes, as you wish.
Yeah. Ooh. So, I mean, I always that scene is just so dynamic in so many ways. Getting off the subject again, but I think it's vital to the Tarkin episode here, is it shows you that even at a level of Vader status, where this guy is more powerful than any Jedi, and yet he can control himself he has a certain amount of respect, listens, and takes a backseat to Tarkin in A New Hope. And I think that's a scene that's just always resonated with me.
Literally, you get that sense that he knows he's not a brilliant strategist like this person here. And
he's pretty brilliant in his own way.
He's brilliant in his own way, but I mean, just think about that. To Vader, he's intimidated by this man's genius.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Now, again, that all builds up to this discussion. Do you think, before we move on, do you think Tarkin was, do you think this episode did live up to the Tarkin, I guess, what would be the word? Mythology?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, like, if you think about it, the one thing I was really worried about when they announced that they were going to do Tarkin was throughout the season, we've seen the crew of the rebels literally beat the Empire down. They make them look stupid.
Right.
I mean,
which, people were complaining about that, saying that, the Empire's bumbling idiots. I'm like, no, they're not really bumbling idiots, but they are. I mean, do you guys forget the original trilogy? The Stormtroopers, I keep saying this, the Stormtroopers weren't brilliant.
Yeah, they weren't the clones.
They're troopers. They're peon knuckle draggers. Not to talk shit about soldiers, knuckle draggers, but I mean, they're basic soldiers.
Yeah.
They're not freaking Navy SEALs.
They're showpieces. They're
right.
pawns.
And Callus, look at Callus. They haven't made him a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
And to be fair, most of the Stormtroopers haven't been bumbling idiots. They're just not sharpshooter, crack shots either.
Exactly. And the thing I figured was thankful that I actually saw, because the episode was, the tone of the episode set everything for just this character. Tarkin doesn't fool around. He literally had an idea, had a plan, followed through, executed with precision, and for the first time ever, we see the rebels basically backtracking,
right?
Because they realize that, oh shit, we've been like kind of taking advantage of the moment right now.
Yeah,
we are not ready to face someone like this,
right?
And that's why I told people, like, everyone says, well, why doesn't Darth Vader show up? If Darth Vader show up, the rebels would be killed. They would absolutely be slaughtered.
Yeah.
And
that's not his job.
And it's not his job
at this point.
And you know what was brilliant in the very beginning of the opening scene of this episode? Tarkin, he's pissed because he got brought here and he thinks that this is absolutely beneath him.
Right. Yeah.
But he got brought here because he was ordered that this is an important outpost that is for the Empire.
At the same time, I like that he wasn't fearful of the Jedi, but he respected what the Jedi represent. And that was awesome. I didn't want them to see the Trade Federation fear. Oh, we're not to get out of this alive. You know how they're afraid of the Jedi, and we're not going to get away with this. Like, it didn't have. He had a respectful fear, not fear, respectful, I guess, outlook of the Jedi and what they represent. And that's why he was here, because he mentioned something that kind of put to rest a question that we've had on the show since day one. Me and Dustin have been talking for the past 2 episodes. Is this in fact the Rebel Alliance? Is this the start of the Rebel Alliance? Because we're like, well, there has to be other factions. There has to be, and they've never really kind of touched on it yet until this point. Before they execute those 2 Imperial officers, Tarkin says there are factions. There are, he goes on and lists a bunch of different things, and he says, but this one is the difference with this one is they're unified.
Yeah. And
he says they're unified because of their Jedi leader. And he immediately, that's why he knows what the Jedi can do. They can stir up hope. And this goes back to the genius of politics of George Lucas, which I'm glad they're sticking to that, even in a Disney cartoon, which I discussed on an episode you weren't here, is the genius of that always gets overlooked. And I say this time and time again, is to me, is Lucasfilm's, or George Lucas's expose, I guess you can call it, on politics. And even in the prequels, that was at that was the cornerstone of the entire demise of the Jedi Order, of the Old Republic.
Oh yeah,
was well-crafted politics. And if you watch the politics of this, they're continuing it. Tarkin comes here because Politics 101 dictates you do not allow insurgencies to build or shaken the faith of the power that's in control.
Yes.
Because if that happens, then they realize that these people aren't high. It's just like goes back to the World War II. What did the American soldiers and the American government make the Japanese government do after World War II? They made the emperor say he is not a god, he's just a man, in order for the people of Japan to say and realize, oh, he's just a man, he isn't a god. Because when you look at someone as a god and you look at him like a man, hey, this guy squats and takes a shit just like us, you start looking at this person a lot differently.
Exactly.
And if that happens, you lose control and you lose power. And that, when Tarkin said here, when he said that line, it was just sheer political brilliance. And he says, we cannot allow the faith in the Empire to be shaken. Yeah. And that's true.
And it was brilliant. I think that basically that during that scene, I like that because that's what I wish the 3 prequels did, because I agree with you. I mean, George Lucas' brilliance in trying to bring in politics and show the power of politics.
The saving grace of the prequel trilogy, in my opinion, the absolute saving grace was the politics. The
problem was it got a little preachy. Like he wouldn't focus in on something.
I think he was trying to show us what was going on in our government.
Exactly. Yeah. Now here you have it simplified, and it was done brilliantly by the writers.
Yeah.
Because they said, okay, we're not gonna actually try to explode and try to make this an entire political game. Tarkin just puts it simplified. He says, we're already in the government. The worst thing, and by far, is that they become unified.
Yeah.
And you have another government.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, brilliant, end it there. He didn't have to do anything else. And it fit his character because Tarkin's a type of person, especially when you read the book, he's the type of person that is cut to the chase. He doesn't want to waste time.
Yeah.
Wasting time is it goes against his belief that you have to be efficient.
Yeah. Well, he said it. He says, this is supposed to be an industrialized something pertaining to corporations or something. What did he say? Is a line to them saying this planet represents a very important industrial site for the empire. Yeah, something to that effect. So yeah, it's all about business, man. That's what empires do. It's all about in dictatorships. Usually it's about, reaping and raping the natural resources of the areas that you have control of.
And it was awesome because they took a character that I honestly, as I said, had a fear of bringing in because how's he fit into a cartoon?
Yeah,
for kids.
I think they did a great job with the tone.
They did a great job.
I mean, dude. Okay, let's just talk about this scene now. Okay, and I posted this on Facebook on purpose because I don't mind being preachy to trolls. But I'm gonna just read my comment, okay? On the From the Back to Tank Facebook page, I wrote, "Did the latest episode of Star Wars Rebels finally silence the haters? The writers have pretty much replied to and I put in quotes, the passive and not evil enough Empire complaints. Your bloodthirst should now begin to be quenched. I don't think there has ever been an execution scene quite like that to air on Disney XD before."
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine turning on Disney XD. Okay, let's just imagine this. We're going to watch a TV show. And there's an execution where two guys are beheaded.
Yeah.
And yes, you don't see it. Okay, but I don't think you need to see it. The shock, I was shocked. I was like, whoa.
It's the implication.
The Inquisitor goes up behind them, ignites a lightsaber, and basically goes up behind the both of them, and from behind takes their heads.
Yeah.
For failure. That is classic tyrannical imperialistic shit right there. Straight from the original trilogy, dude, when Darth Vader murdered everybody.
Exactly. And on top of that, it's the implication, especially when you see the look in Callus, and I can't remember the other character, the female leader, and even the Inquisitor, they're like going, okay, Tarkin just randomly ordered kill these two officers because they're idiots.
Yeah. Well, there's a and I like the difference. They start showing a difference between a true Imperial officer like Tarkin, who is a company man. Yes. He's a company man. And then you see someone like Callus, sometimes you're born on the wrong side, meaning I don't think Callus is an evil person. I think, you have people who are just born on this side of the border. So guess what? You were born in Korea, you're probably going to be in the Korean government.
Yeah.
You know what? And if you don't have the thinking mind, or you've been manipulated, or you've allowed yourself to be manipulated, for all you know, you think you're on the right side of the Empire.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you see Callus's face, and it kind of brought a dynamic to him as well, because he wasn't like, he didn't have an evil grin and smile. He wasn't happy that two of his soldiers just got murdered.
Yeah.
He was concerned. His face was like, oh shit.
Yeah, he was shocked. The things I loved about their looks was, we already know that the female officer is intimidated by Tarkin.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't want to say something stupid in front of him, or else he's going to basically snap. Callus, he's just shocked that basically, the look on his face basically told me that, oh my God, he had us kill two of our own people. And then the Inquisitor's look was even more priceless, because the Inquisitor's like going, someone's literally ordering me to do something. And that in itself affects the Inquisitor's character, because you got to remember, the Inquisitor is very pompous. He's very arrogant, especially when his fights with Ezra and oh my God, I completely forgot Kanan. When in his fights with those two, he's always arrogant. Mm-hmm. Now, for the first time, he's being belittled, and he's having to be. You can tell in the look that he doesn't mind killing these two,
right?
But it's just the fact that he's ordered to.
Yeah,
he's ordered by someone else.
Yeah,
and that hurts his character.
Now this brings us forward to brings us forward now to the Rebels themselves, which the show's about, which we've kind of not spoken about them at all yet, really. But okay, this brings up my fear that I've had since this show started. But again, I have to smack myself around and remember that the original canon isn't there, or the whatever you want to call it, the not so canon, because they like to deny that's not canon now.
Yeah.
the go-to quote is, "It never was really canon." So, but okay, so we got to forget about what we know, and that's what I keep struggling with, So, okay, it seems to me they are propping Kanan up to be something bigger in this universe. I was always thinking that they would slip behind, like this show, Rebels they're gonna design this show to kind of like in a smart way, kind of slip below the radar of The New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and kind of so it doesn't like mess up any like thoughts that we might have had or any other. But I don't think they're doing that.
No.
I think they're going full-fledged in there, and they're going to end up interweaving these characters directly into, and it kind of goes along with what the Lucasfilm Story Group has said they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think they are going to start weaving Rebels into important plot points, because and it's going to be tricky, because if they're going to do that, they need to be damn careful it doesn't feel forced. Like, hey guys, remember when Luke was fighting Darth Vader? Guess who was behind that stormtrooper hiding? It was Kanan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on, you can't do stuff like that. You got to be very careful and delicate. And again, I have faith with him, because so far everything I've seen is good. But they do got to be careful. That's a warning. That's a warning out there for you writers if you're paying attention. It looks like they're propping Kanan up to be something important. The fact that Tarkin has now that Kanan has garnered the attention of Tarkin, and that this rebel group is standing out among the rest of the factions, because there's one thing they have different is they're unified. Then I think Kanan and this group of Jedi and these group of rebels are going to play a vital role in forming the Rebel Alliance and making them unified as a group a lot more than we've been led on to believe and what we have thought. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Which I was actually really concerned with too. But as I was watching,
we have to forget what we know, man.
As I was watching the season, I started realizing that, yeah, it's going to be interwoven, that they're going to be playing a really huge role in the birth of the Rebel Alliance. And I was worried that would overshadow a lot of stuff that we've seen, like
Princess Leia, Bail Organa, and all them, knowing that we know that they're directly tied in.
But then I realized that basically they play a major role in one thing.
Right. That's true.
The stuff that originally happened, it kind of elevates the importance of what it is. I mean, if Kanan is going to be, just like what you said, just as important as a figure in the Rebel Alliance, and he's going to be like this Jedi that comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Think how important it makes the story of Luke even more grander in scale, because Luke came from nothing. Kanan came from something, but he had to return like Obi-Wan. Luke came from nothing, and he is super powerful.
Right.
He is the one that was foretold would bring balance to the Force. It's not Ezra. Ezra's and a lot of trolls out there are saying that, they're why are they portraying Ezra to be like this? Really, he has this very powerful connection with the Force.
Right.
And I'm going, well, just because he has a powerful connection of the Force doesn't mean he's going to be as powerful as Luke.
Right.
Because Ezra might not be able to control it.
Yeah.
And they even proved that in the series, that Ezra can control it. Yeah, the Force is always flowing all over the place.
Right. And for all we know, Ezra can end up being, for all we know, Ezra can be the Inquisitor that's torturing Luke in Episode 7.
Which would be freaking awesome. That would be just tying everything together.
Yeah, you know what? And I might be okay with that, actually, now that I said that.
That's going to go into the Rolodex for us.
Ezra's obviously, me and Dustin talked about this in the last couple episodes, Ezra's obviously struggling with the dark side. And not in a way that we've seen, I need to be bad. It's different than we've seen before. Like with Anakin, he was drawn to the darkness. He had this rebellious spirit about him. With Ezra, it's much different. It's more or less that he's kind of tapped in, and he accidentally crosses over and starts showing, powerful elements to himself without even knowing it. He becomes unconscious. He passes out, like when he, blocks all the lightsaber shots or all the blaster shots, remember? And when he passes out and blacks out, and then he passes out and he summons the, the dark side, and the beast comes up from the depths and he doesn't remember. We don't know. It's different. And that's why I'm okay with it, because I didn't want to see a guy struggling with the dark side. But if they end up doing that with Ezra, it's very different than what we saw with Anakin. Anakin was a control freak who wanted to control, who had a rebellious spirit and knew he was crossing the line. And every time he did it, he didn't care.
Yeah,
because he thought he was arrogant. He thought he was better. Ezra, it's different. Ezra is more innocent, more naive, a little bit more I don't want to call what would be the right word for him.
I think like naive. Like what you said is naive is perfect for him.
And down to earth, I guess. He's he's very farm boyish.
Yeah.
And much like Luke, and it's different. So if they make him struggle and go dark side, it's a unique approach to it.
Yeah, and that's leave it to the writers to actually do that, because they knew they had to make these characters feel like themselves.
Yeah,
they didn't. They couldn't. The worst thing that Rebels could have done is like make Ezra a carbon copy of Luke, make Kanan a carbon copy of Han Solo, and instead the writers knew this and they basically said, no, we got to give these guys backgrounds that people can relate to.
Yeah.
They won't relate them to Luke and Han. This is completely different, completely unique.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually really dig about Kanan, because, yes, he is the leader of the rebels. However, even in this episode, Kanan knows that he's not strong enough to take out the Inquisitor. He knows that basically Ezra is probably even more tapped into the Force than he is. But he accepts that and basically still takes up the leadership role. That makes him different than any character I've ever seen. And my worst fear for that character was actually they would turn him into kind of like that Han Solo type of fallen Jedi. Instead, they've kind of turned him into this new, what a leader should be. A leader knows his weaknesses. And that's what his story arc is. He's beginning to realize that he isn't as good as he is. There are people better than him, and he has to accept that.
Yeah. And I like that, going with what you're saying again. It also shows that I like when the Inquisitor says you've been practicing.
Yeah.
Because it shows that Kanan is no longer drinking and boozing and just being a bum. That he better, start honing his skills again, because he's got to get good with the lightsaber again.
Exactly.
Yeah. One final thought that I really liked in this past episode was the fact that Ezra and Kanan are falling into their Jedi positions, Padawan and Jedi Knight, where they're the bosses. You saw how Ezra was giving Sabine orders.
Yeah. And
that's exactly how the Republic and the Rebel Alliance, in non-EU stuff now, non-canon, but that's what happens. The Jedis are the commanders.
Yeah.
And I like that, how they just kind of very, wasn't in your face like I'm in charge now. It was just kind of it was put in there very non-intrusive, and it flowed very nicely, where you see Ezra just falling right into his natural born Jedi leadership skills. So I like that, because not only is Rebels paying tribute to the original trilogy, but they're also trying to play tribute and stay consistent with what we've seen in the prequel.
Yeah.
And that's a hard feat, man. And this show is somewhere in the middle. It has the tone and feel of the original series, but also at times you feel like it's something else as well.
Because we've mentioned this in the past with this show with Rebels, is like they have found that magic chemistry where it's like they're not going to rush things. They're going to let it organically grow on its own. And this first season absolutely was brilliant, because this is how character progression should be.
Yeah.
Throughout a season, like Ezra's not going to become a Jedi Knight after, a
Jedi Knight
episode 2.
Yeah.
It took him we're at episode 12 now.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yep.
It took 12 episodes for Ezra to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I really did dig the fact that in this past episode, we actually got to see him use the blaster lightsaber that he had.
Yeah.
And, the crew actually says, yeah, he's really grown from the person that had the rinky-dink slingshot on his wrist.
I'm so glad that thing went. I mean, it was cool, but not that cool.
That blaster, stunned people.
Yeah.
It's a taser.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it turns into a lightsaber.
That's awesome.
And
hey, I'm going to tase you with this, but I'm not going to kill you unless it turns into a lightsaber. That's the only thing I don't understand. I'm like, okay, so you made a blaster that stuns people because you don't want to kill people, right?
Yeah.
But then you're going to hit someone with a lightsaber. Guess what? They're dead.
But
there's no stunning effect with a lightsaber.
That is true. Maybe the idea is I stun him, then I kill him.
That's the dark side, Ezra. You know what? On that note, we do need to wrap this segment. Coming up not next week. They're going to be skipping. Dustin and I talked about this on the last show. That's very inconsistent release dates, and I already got into why we think that's the case. But so the next episode will be available next week on Disney XD, the next Star Wars Rebels episode.
Yes.
If you have access to getting it online, you can get it on the iPhone, iPad app, yada, yada, yada. But it will not air on television. It won't be available on demand on your DVRs and so on and so forth until February 23rd.
Yep.
That'll be the conclusion of what we just saw, I think, part 2, which will be titled, what is the title? I don't know. So good job, Mike.
I think it's Rebel something.
Let me look it up real fast. Hold on.
I actually saw a preview of it just this morning. I'm trying to remember.
Now, do we know, is this the season finale?
I think this is the season finale because we all know that season 2 is going to be debuting at the Star Wars Celebration, which is in April. And honestly, we've got 12 episodes. I think this 12 episodes is the cutoff point for a season.
I think, next season they're saying is going to be, hold on, let's look at that in a second. Hold on. It's going to be called Rebel Resolve. So the next episode is coming out. It's called Rebel Resolve, and it'll be out February 23rd. Now, I want to say this is the season finale. Are you agreeing on that, or?
I'm going to agree on that.
It's kind of hard to find. I mean, I guess I can Google it, but the information is so, unverified information out there.
If it is the season finale, I think this is a good way of ending it because you have that change in tone now. You have the appearance of a major figure like Tarkin.
Yeah.
In the series.
I wouldn't mind Tarkin becoming a normal 2 or 3 times an episode guy or season guy coming in.
As long as they keep the tone right.
Yes.
Because I don't want to see a jokey episode with Tarkin.
No.
All of a sudden they get one over him at the very end. No.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that. That just ruined the character.
Yeah. There's some news that season 2 will be a much bigger season. So yes, we had we have 12 official episodes, plus we have the movie, which for a long time people were considering that episodes, but now they are calling it the Spark of the Rebellion movie.
Yes.
So technically you have that was a 2-hour pilot. So you have, technically that was 14 episodes we've had pretty much. Yeah. They're saying next year there'll be a much larger order of episodes.
And with the announcement that basically, like we mentioned earlier about Han Solo and the appearance of Ahsoka and Darth Vader and especially the Emperor, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. All right, on that note, thank you everybody for listening to another Star Wars Rebels edition. You can always go to Stitcher, Smart Radio, and search From the Bacta Tank. Also, we're available on our website, StarWarsFromTheBactaTank.com. Next week, look for a brand new From the Bacta Tank show. This will be our regular show where we discuss all things Star Wars, plus parody bits from Dustin Lucas and myself. So don't miss that. We'll see you guys next time.
May the Force be with us.
FromTheBactaTank.com and listen to the show at your leisure. We're also on Stitcher, Smart Radio, Standardized.